That morning, the sunlight hadn't yet touched the window frame. I heard metal clanking in the study, walked in, and froze. The safe was wide open, empty, and smelled like cold steel. Every piece of jewelry I'd guarded for 40 years, my wedding ring, my mother's jade bracelet, the earrings my husband gave me, was gone. My daughter-in-law turned around, her voice dripping with mockery and delight. "You're too old to need that kind of frill. I donated everything. Young people need it more." I stood still. Her words from last night kept echoing in my head. "After this birthday, I'll put her in a nursing home. That house will be mine." Anger rose and caught in my throat, but I didn't shout. I just smiled, the taste turning bitter in my mouth. "You're right," I said quietly. "I don't need them anymore, but you're about to need a lawyer." She paused, tilted her chin, and walked away. She didn't know she'd just lit the fuse on a war she started, and the price wouldn't be as simple as losing today's arrogance. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave is another mark in this journey. And if this story has touched you, don't forget to hit like so it can reach even further. My name is Lorraine Parker, 61 years old, living in the suburbs of Savannah, Georgia, where mornings always begin with birdsong and the smell of coffee. I'm the widow of Edward, a gentle attorney who passed away 3 years ago, leaving me a 3-bedroom house and tender memories. I used to think I understood my family, until my daughter-in-law, the one I once treated like a daughter, turned everything I treasured into a fight to reclaim my dignity and the truth. I stood alone in the dust-lit room, my heart pounding like the metal echo still hanging in the air. My trembling hand rested on the safe's icy door. Those pieces weren't just gold or gems, they were memories. 40 years of marriage to Edward, the promise of a man who's gone. Now it was all an empty space. I closed my eyes for a few seconds and took a deep breath. At 61, I don't cry over wounds anymore. I've learned to pull my tears back and turn them into steel. Camila thinks I'm a frail old woman living off my son's pity. She's wrong. I was an attorney's wife for 40 years. I know the law, and I know how to push back without raising my voice. I walked slowly to the window and pulled the curtain. Outside, the garden Edward once tended was overgrown. Sunlight hit the withered roses Camila always called an eyesore and wanted to cut down. She'd probably do it tomorrow morning. I let out a thin smile and moved to the desk. In the second drawer, under old papers, lay a worn beige envelope with Edward's handwriting. "Temporary will. Open only if necessary." I held the envelope, tracing his familiar script, and felt strangely calm. Necessary, if not now, when? The phone on the desk buzzed. I unlocked it and found Harold Benton, Edward's closest friend and law partner. I hadn't contacted him since the funeral. I didn't want to poke the pain. But this morning, pain turned into fuel. I typed 4 words, "Harold, plan is on." Seconds later, the scene mark popped up with a reply, 10 a.m., tomorrow, same office. "Don't let anyone follow." I set the phone down and dropped into the chair. The room still carried Edward's scent, old paper, and strong coffee. Every corner, every frame seemed to ask, "Why did you let them walk into our home like this?" I looked around. Everything had changed so fast it felt unreal. 3 years ago, after Edward died, Nathan, my youngest, begged me to let him and his wife move in. Back then, Camila spoke gently and cared for me like a daughter. I thought God had sent her to fill the loneliness, now that blessing was strangling me, day by day. I went downstairs to the kitchen where Camila had just made coffee. She glanced at me, a smirk on her lips. "I've got a meeting. Lock the door, okay? Lots of strangers around lately." I nodded, keeping the mild expression she expected. When she turned her back, I quietly pulled a small flash drive from my cardigan pocket. Edward had saved part of an old plan on it, and now it would be my tool. I opened the sugar jar, tucked the USB deep into the white crystals, and screwed the lid on tight. Camila thinks I can't handle tech, but she forgets I used to help Edward fix his recorder whenever he needed to take statements. I still remember how to use it, and I will, to capture everything. After Camila left, I went to the small cabinet by the door. Inside, the hidden compartment was an old Sony voice recorder Edward bought me back when we were still working. I turned it on, checked the levels, then slipped it into my pocket. Every conversation from now on would be saved, no more words twisted. Before sitting down, I scanned the living room. The old things had been disappearing. The landscape painting he loved, the crystal vase from our Italy trip, each item vanished by coincidence, and I'd learned the pattern. Camila wasn't taking objects. She was taking pieces of my life systematically and coldly. I made a cup of black tea and set it on the table, watching the steam curl thinly upward. At my age, people hope for peace, not war. But some battles, if you don't stand up, will cost you your soul. When the clock struck 11, I opened Edward's envelope. Inside was a handwritten copy of his will and a note. "Lorraine, if you're reading this, it means you must protect our home. Harold knows everything. Trust him. And remember, never let fear keep you silent." I gripped the paper, feeling as if Edward stood behind me, nodding. "All right, Edward," I whispered. "We'll protect this house one more time." Outside, I heard Camila's car roll off the driveway. I went to the window and watched her disappear beneath the magnolias. Midday sun washed the yard, lighting the patch where Edward planted my roses. Wilted now, but the roots still there. They just need care again. So do I. I went to the desk, opened the hidden compartment, and took out a brown leather notebook. It's my evidence journal where I'll record every word, every move Camila makes. Each page will be a hammer blow against the act she's built. On the first page, I wrote slowly, "March 14th, Camila Foster admitted she took all my jewelry and donated it." I stayed calm. She doesn't know today is the first day I began collecting evidence. When the ink dried, I closed the notebook. Afternoon slid in. Sunlight tilted through the window onto our old wedding photo. In it, he's smiling softly, and I'm young and full of hope. I touched the glass and said quietly, "You know, I've kept my promise. I won't let anyone steal my life." Night fell, and the house settled into quiet. Camila was asleep. Nathan was still at the office. I sat by the window and wrote a few last lines. Night 1 of the battle. I don't know how far I'll have to go, but I know this: I'm not afraid anymore. I closed the journal and turned off the lights, leaving a small candle burning on the desk. The flame flickered across my reflection, tired, but with light still in my eyes. That night, Camila slept soundly. I stayed up. Because when a woman who has loved, lost, and been dismissed finally wakes up, it's no longer weakness, it's the beginning of justice. 3 years ago, on a quiet March morning, I lost Edward. He was making coffee like always, wearing a freshly pressed striped shirt, the smell of Arabica filling the kitchen. I'd just stepped off the stairs when I heard a cup drop. That tiny sound, small, really ended 40 years of marriage. Edward collapsed by the stove, still holding the spoon. The doctor said it was a heart attack, seconds long. No pain, no last words. For me, it was a wound that never healed. We held the funeral in the backyard where he once planted roses for me. Neighbors, friends, colleagues came in droves. I stood there in the March wind, listening to the priest's farewell like it came from very far away. The wind flipped the hem of my black dress. I didn't move. People say time heals. For me, time just stretched the silence. Our 3-bedroom home in Savannah, once full of laughter, turned into a museum of memories. The kitchen where we argued about soup being too salty, the living room where Edward read the paper each morning, the bedroom where I still set the other pillow like he was there. At night, I still turned to the right before sleeping, and each morning I touched the cold sheet beside me, then rise quietly as if the ritual could keep him near. My 3 kids live in different places. Angela's in Denver, Ryan works in Chicago, and only Nathan, the youngest, stayed in the same state, less than an hour's drive away. Nathan was closest to Edward. They rebuilt the porch together, went fishing most weekends. After his father died, Nathan visited often, bringing pastries and yellow roses, the kind Edward liked. At first, my son's presence was the only comfort I had left. We'd sit for hours talking about Edward, summers at Tybee, and his proposal by the river. But 6 months later, Nathan showed up with a stranger. "Mom, this is Camila." She walked in with a soft smile and a bouquet of bright sunflowers. I remember it clearly, late summer afternoon, golden light across the living room, and Camila standing there, radiant, like the first ray to slip into a house I'd kept dark too long. "Mrs. Parker, it's so nice to meet you. Nathan's told me so much about you," she said, warm voice, steady eyes. I remember squeezing her hand tightly, like part of me wanted to believe this was the start of something good. Camila wasn't just pretty, she knew how to make people feel needed. She helped me reorganize Edward's books, cooked the pot roast I love, and never forgot my afternoon tea. When she rolled up her sleeves to work in the yard, sweat darkening her shirt, I laughed for the first time since the funeral. The sound felt strange, hoarse, cracked, like it came from someone else, but in that moment, I knew I was still alive. Over the next months, Camila became a fixture. She brought youthful energy and a way of brightening the house. Nathan looked at her the way Edward used to look at me. It's hard not to love someone who makes your son happy. I watched them and felt a part of me loosen. When Nathan proposed, I was the most emotional person there. We held a small wedding in the yard where Edward rests. I paid for the decorations, hired a jazz band, even baked the cake myself. The Savannah sky was mirror blue that day. A soft breeze passed through the lavender Edward planted. When they exchanged rings, warmth returned to me. After a long winter, I could finally smile without guilt. After the wedding, Camila suggested, "Mom, how about we move in with you for a while? Our rental is tiny and you must get lonely. I can help with cooking, the garden. What do you think?" She said it so gently, eyes so sincere. I didn't hesitate. I pictured cozy dinners, conversation, footsteps in the hallway, the things I'd lost since Edward left. I nodded, relieved enough not to see the question mark hiding in her smile. "Just temporary, Mom," Nathan said. "We'll save up for a place of our own. I don't want you to be alone." That made my throat tighten. I believed we were still a close family, that God had repaid me with a good daughter-in-law. The first months were smooth. Camila woke early to cook breakfast, asked me to taste new dishes, always called me Mom with a sweet tone. I felt useful again, wanted again. We watched movies on Fridays. Nathan grilled in the yard like Edward used to. The house smelled like food again, like music and laughter. Change often arrives quietly. One night, while tidying the kitchen, Camila asked, "Mom, Nathan said the house is still in your name, right?" I nodded, never suspecting a blang thing. "So, where are the house papers?" "I'm only asking in case of emergencies. I'm good with documents. Maybe I could help." I smiled and said they were in the safe where Edward kept everything. She nodded, her concern making me feel lucky to have a thoughtful daughter-in-law. I didn't notice her gaze linger a bit too long at the mention of the safe. A few days later, during morning tea, Camila brought it up again. "Mom, you must keep that safe key really secure, huh? I read about lots of break-ins lately. Want me to put it away for you?" "I'm home more." I laughed and said there wasn't anything valuable in there besides papers. "Sure, but just in case, you know me, I plan ahead." I remember her voice light, even with a probing edge. But I still trusted her, trusted the soft eyes, the kind voice of the woman who'd held my hand at the farmer's market, helping me pick apples. Trusted that goodness exists and no one would be cruel to a widow in her 60s. I even thought if Edward were alive, he'd like Camila. That afternoon, Nathan brought home yellow roses, the kind Edward liked. He said, "Mom, Camila thinks Dad would want you to replant the roses." I looked at her and smiled for real. "Thank you. I must be lucky to have you as my daughter-in-law." Camila only smiled. If I'd been sharper, I'd have noticed the smile wasn't warm. It was blade thin, with a glint of someone pleased with a plan. That night, as I shut my bedroom door, I heard her whispering with Nathan downstairs. Her voice slid under the door like a draft, soft, drawn-out, slippery. "As long as your mom signs a few papers, everything gets easier." I didn't hear the rest. I stopped at our wedding photo on the wall. In it, Edward's looking at me with those kind eyes, and I'm young, trusting, full of life. I touched the frame and said, "Sweetheart, maybe I should start paying closer attention." Even with a hunch, I didn't realize that the day I opened our door to Camila, I also opened the door to the biggest test of my life. The changes started so small I barely noticed. First was the sofa. "Mom, this set is outdated. My friend's selling a newer one, lighter color, better with the living room light," Camila said, catalog already in hand. I was about to object when Nathan nodded. "If you think it's good, swap it. As long as Mom's comfortable." We'd sat on that old couch every night watching the news, him with his feet on the table, me scolding him for the mess. In one afternoon, it was gone, memories and all. After the sofa came the maple cabinet. "Antiques mold if you keep them too long. I'll sell it to a collector. We'll get cash and declutter," she said, voice airy. Then my mother's rocking chair, the last thing left from her, was donated to a nursing home. Camila called it a good deed. I nodded, swallowing the lump, telling myself, maybe she just wants a tidy place. But the house began to feel strange. The worn, familiar things disappeared, replaced by cool whites, metal chairs, sheer curtains. My home turned into a magazine, spread pretty, but lifeless. Nathan was busy with a new construction job, out early, home late, just dinner and bed. Meanwhile, Camila ran everything like a true owner. Each morning, I'd grind coffee and she'd frown. "Mom, I'm meditating. Please don't run the grinder right now. It's loud." So I started slipping to the backyard, brewing coffee in an old pot, breathing the morning air to ease the tightness. Her concern deepened in a way I couldn't comfortably refuse. "Mom, let me hold your credit card. I go to the store a lot. It's easier to pay. No need for you to get tired." I hesitated. "I'll keep clear notes, promise." It sounded reasonable, and I agreed. But a few weeks later, my account crept down. Nothing huge, just small, spaced withdrawals, $200, $300. I planned to ask when. Camila spoke first. "I reordered the sofa, remember? And kitchen decor, plus the AC maintenance. Don't worry, I have all the receipts." She rattled it off without a hiccup. Nathan, mid-dinner, just smiled. "Camila's great at managing, Mom. Don't worry." I smiled back, stiffly. Inside, something cracked. But I kept telling myself, she's my daughter-in-law, Nathan's wife. It can't be. Day by day, I felt like a guest in my own home. Camila rearranged our schedule. Dinner moved to 8 p.m. because Nathan works late. The main dining room became her hosting space. I was asked to eat in the kitchen so private discussions can be comfortable. One morning, as I cleared the table, Camila said softly but clearly, "Mom, you've been dropping things a lot, must be age." I heard there are great memory care centers for seniors. The words felt like someone plunged my heart into cold water. Next day, my friend Rita called. "Lorraine, are you all right? I heard you're getting a little forgetful. Someone said you even forgot to pay at the market last week." I was stunned. I've never been forgetful. I remember every bill, every friend's birthday, every plant Edward ever put in the ground. I knew instantly. That rumor didn't appear by itself. Camila was laying the groundwork. From then on, I spoke less and watched more. She stayed perfect around Nathan, gentle, attentive, thoughtful. But alone with me, her tone changed, cold, curt. sometimes just a quick look full of disdain. I tried once to talk to Nathan. "Son, I feel like Camila's been different. Have you noticed?" He set his coffee down, tired. "Mom, I know you're lonely, but don't overthink it. Camila's good. You're just being a little suspicious." "Suspicious?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Then why is she making every decision in this house? Mom, I'm exhausted. Please don't blow this up." The door closed, leaving me, standing there, listening to my heartbeat like an old clock about to run out of batteries. From that day on, I knew I had no ally left in this house. I started doing what Edward once taught me: when no one believes you, let the evidence speak. I took a small recorder from the drawer and slipped it into my cardigan pocket. Every time Camila made a call, I turned on auto record. I captured every line, every word. At first, they were just short clips, then they became full conversations. One afternoon, I heard her on the phone. "No, she doesn't suspect anything. Take it slow. A few more months, and it's done." Her voice was low, cold, and firm. I sat behind the door, hands shaking, heart tightening. She wasn't calling me Mom anymore. That night, I went to the living room and sat on the new couch. Everything was bright, tidy, and clean, but I felt like I was sitting in someone else's house. No more jazz Edward loved, no more wedding photo. Even the old wall clock was gone, replaced by a digital one to be modern. I realized I was living like a shadow. Camila didn't kick me out, but she made me feel invisible. Every morning I made coffee in silence, careful not to bump into anything. Every dinner, I ate alone in the kitchen, listening to their laughter from the living room. I don't know when the house stopped being mine, maybe when the rocking chair disappeared, or when Nathan stopped looking at me like a son looks at his mother and started looking at me like a burden. One night, I played back the latest recording of Camila's call. "Just let me handle it. When she gets weaker, everything will be easier. This house will be ours." I sat in the dark for a long time, watching the streetlight glow through the window, gripping the recorder until my hand went numb. I didn't cry. Not because I was strong, but because tears can't wash away the truth anymore. In the mirror, my face showed every wrinkle, but my eyes, those eyes were brighter than ever. I understood that Camila wasn't just draining money day by day. She was stripping my dignity, my memories, and my very existence. But there was one thing she didn't know. I'd started collecting every drop of poison she'd been dripping, and when the time was right, I'd turn each drop into evidence, and she'd have to swallow exactly what she mixed. That night, I sat back at the table and opened the brown leather notebook, my evidence journal. I wrote one more line, slowly. July 27th. I'm no longer the homeowner, just a boarder. But I still have my memory, and that memory will be the one thing Camila can never take. Then I closed the notebook and turned off the light. Outside, the Savannah night breeze slipped through the frame, carrying the scent of lavender and a silent promise. The day they stole everything from me was the day I began taking it all back. My 61st birthday arrived in silence. No flowers, no cards, no cake, not a single wish. I woke up as usual, made coffee, and stood by the window looking out at the small garden Edward used to tend. Savannah was bright and clear. Sunlight fell golden on the lavender and dew-wet grass. It was strangely peaceful, if not for the hollow feeling gnawing at my chest. I looked up at the wall calendar. May 12th, my birthday, but no one mentioned it. Camila came down the stairs in a pale blue dress, her strong perfume flooding the kitchen. "Mom, I'm throwing a little party with friends today. You don't mind, right?" I glanced around and saw the dining table set with wine glasses, cheese, and savory pastries. "Of course," I said, hiding a tired smile. "I was just planning to stay in and read." "Perfect. Oh, and one small thing, when my friends get here, please stay upstairs for me. I don't want them to feel awkward around older folks. You understand, right?" I stayed quiet. The words were light as air, but they pierced like a needle. She said, "older folks," like she was talking about an outdated decoration. By afternoon, the house was crowded. I heard chatter, clinking glasses, the smell of wine drifting to the second floor. I sat in my room, gripping my leather journal, trying to talk myself out of crying, but the tears came anyway. Not because they forgot my birthday, but because in the house with my name on it, I was the one who had to stay upstairs. I was about to go out for a walk to clear my head, but when I reached the stairs, Camila's voice rose from below. "Just a few more weeks. After his mom's in a nursing home, this house will be sold. $600,000 easy. When the candle goes out and darkness falls, that's exactly when I found my light." What about you? Has your light ever come after a loss? Write a few lines in the comments. Maybe what you shared today will be someone else's sunrise tomorrow. I went numb. My heart felt like it stopped. I stepped back, hiding behind the wooden railing, my nails digging into my skin. "You sure?" one of her friends asked. "Sure. She's old, a bit forgetful, and no one's on her side. Nathan's tired of it too." Laughter burst out. "You're right. Old people don't need money. They just need a place to breathe." I heard wine being poured and glasses clinking. A chill ran down my spine. Then the front door opened. Nathan's voice floated in, mixed with the music. "Camila, why so many people?" "I thought it was just a few close friends. Just a little get-together." She laughed, so sweet it made my skin crawl. "Come here. I need to tell you something." I took a few more steps and caught them heading into the kitchen. Her voice dropped, but I could hear clearly through the gap between steps. "Babe, I'm tired. I can't live in this house with your mom forever. She's getting harder to deal with, and, the money from selling this place is enough for us to buy a condo downtown. She'll be fine. Nursing homes are modern now." Nathan didn't answer, only her voice kept going, soft but steely. "Don't you want an easier life? We haven't had a chance like this in years. Think about it, does your mom really need a $600,000 house?" A long pause, then Nathan's voice, rough. I get it. I'll talk to Mom later." The air went out of me. I walked back to my room, every step heavy as stone. Each "I get it" rang like a hammer strike. I sat on the bed, opened the leather journal, and wrote with a shaking hand. May 12th, 61st birthday, no flowers, no cake. Daughter-in-law throws a party downstairs, asks me to stay upstairs. Heard them planning to put me in a nursing home and sell the house for $600,000. Nathan agreed. I set the pen down and looked around the room once the nest Edward and I built. Our wedding photo, the window over the garden, the jacket he left on the chair. Everything had witnessed the years I poured into this family. And now, that same family wanted to ship me off like an old thing with no value. I let out a small laugh, sounding strange in the empty room. Not the laugh of someone weak, the kind that slips out when you realize something inside you has died. I stood and went to the safe in the study. A feeling pushed me to open it. The door swung wide empty. Everything from the house deed to the jewelry I had left was gone. I didn't scream or smash anything. I just stood there until my heart stopped thrashing. Then I quietly walked out, took my phone from my cardigan pocket. Harold Benton was still in my contacts, right under Edward Parker. I hit call. "Lorraine?" "Yes, Harold. I need to see you." "As soon as possible." His voice was deep and steady, just as I remembered. "Tomorrow morning, old office, 8 a.m. Don't say anything else over the phone." "I understand." I hung up, sat at the desk, and pulled out the leather journal again. Under what I'd just written, I added, "I called Harold. Meeting tomorrow morning. This will be the start." I set the pen down, closed the journal, and opened the drawer to take out an old photo of Edward and me at Tybee Island. He was smiling, wind in my hair, sunlight filling the frame. I touched his face and whispered, "Sweetheart, they think I'm weak." They forget I learned from you how to fight in silence. I blew out the small candle on the desk, the only birthday candle I lit for myself. The light vanished, leaving just the smell of wax and smoke. Downstairs, the laughter kept ringing bright and fake. Glasses clinking, music, and birthday wishes for someone but not me. I sat in the dark, my heart quiet like a lake before a storm. I knew that when the candle went out, something else lit up inside me, a strength they never saw coming. I stood, shut the window, pulled the curtains, then went back to the desk and wrote one last line in that day's entry. Tonight, I swear no one will take anything else from me. Not this house, not my dignity, not my memories. And tomorrow morning, when the sun rises, the game begins. I set the pen down, straightened my back, and stared into the dark. On the other side of the wall, Camila's laugh rang out, clear and cruel like breaking glass. I closed my eyes and took a long breath. Tomorrow, they wouldn't laugh so easily. I arrived at Harold Benton's office the next morning, right at 8 a.m., just like he said. It's a red brick building on Old Broughton Street, where time seems to move a little slower. The sign, Benton and Cole, attorneys at law, still used the classic font from the 80s. I'd been there many times with Edward, back when he practiced. The wooden door opened with a small bell. Harold looked up from behind his desk, silver gray hair, tall frame, a slight stoop like he carried the weight of old cases. "Lorraine." He said my name in that deep voice, surprised, but serious. I nodded. "It's been a while." He motioned for me to sit. On the desk lay his notebook and an old Parker fountain pen I remembered Edward gifting him one Christmas. I told him everything. I didn't leave out a single detail. From the strange withdrawals and the memory loss rumors to the birthday party, where I heard my daughter-in-law plan to ship me to a nursing home. Each time I paused to breathe, Harold just nodded, eyes fixed on the page. Not one interruption. When I got to the empty safe, he set the pen down, looked up, and his eyes turned hard. "This is elder financial abuse, Lorraine, and if what you're saying is substantiated, it's not just unethical, it's criminal." I clenched my hands. I don't want revenge, I want justice. I want back what Edward left and my dignity. He nodded and spoke slowly. "We'll do both." Then he opened the notebook and drew 3 lines. 3 steps. 1. Cut off the money, open separate accounts, change passwords, revoke any access Camila has. 2. Prove capacity, I'll refer you to Dr. Nguyen. She's a geriatric specialist. Her report will shut down any memory loss claims. 3. Gather evidence, every receipt, every recording, every signature. I nodded. "I've already recorded a few calls." "Even better," Harold said. "Keep going, but quietly. We'll let them trap themselves." He said it with the calm of someone who's watched many people fall from their own arrogance. We talked for over 2 hours. When I left, my heartbeat had slowed. It wasn't racing like last night. I had a plan. I wasn't alone anymore. That afternoon, I went to the bank. The teller looked surprised when I asked to open a new account, only in my name, linked to no one. I kept it simple. I've updated my dependents. I changed every password and set up 2-factor authentication. Typing the last digits felt like closing a door Camila had been sneaking through for months. That evening, I sat down and rewrote every recent expense. The empty space formed into a number, more than $28,000 gone in just 3 months. Shopping, transfers, payments, everyone under my name. Camila had used mother-in-law as a cover to drain it all. Harold called back around 9 p.m. "Lorraine?" I spoke with an old colleague at the prosecutor's office. "If you've got enough evidence, we can file an elder abuse complaint under Georgia Code 30-5-8. I'll prepare the paperwork." His voice was steady, like an anchor in a storm. I could breathe. The next day, I saw Dr. Nguyen, the specialist Harold recommended. A small clinic with still-life paintings and a hint of mint in the air. She was around 40, Vietnamese, with a gentle, warm tone. "Miss Parker, I'll ask a few simple questions to check memory and cognition. Please relax." The screening took nearly an hour, reading numbers backward, recalling words, drawing shapes, answering scenarios. When we finished, she smiled. "The results are excellent. You're fully competent. I'll write an official report for Attorney Benton to use if needed." I nodded. Like a thin, invisible cord Camila had tightened around my neck finally loosened. On the way home, I stopped by Edward's old coffee shop, where he used to write case notes. I chose the table by the window, ordered a hot cappuccino, and opened my leather journal. For the first time in months, my hand didn't shake. First step, done. I'm still clear enough to protect myself. They won't get away with calling me senile anymore. That night, Harold called again. "You need more people on your side," he said. "Caroline, your sister still at the notary office?" "She is," I answered. "Good. Ask her to review everything Camila pushed you to sign. I want to see if there's forgery." I called Caroline that night. She listened, stayed quiet for a long moment, then said softly, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I kept hoping Nathan would see it. Let me help now. I can check notarized dates and compare signatures." Her voice was firm, so warm it tightened my throat. 3 days later, Caroline sent Harold copies of 3 documents Camila had made me sign, every one with irregularities. One was a temporary authorization allowing Camila to transact at the bank on my behalf. Harold reviewed them, pushed his glasses up and nodded, enough to open a civil investigation. Meanwhile, he hired a private investigator, a former cop. "He'll track Camila, especially trips to pawn shops or banks. I need photos, not just stories." Harold updated me daily. I listened and wrote everything down. It felt like each piece of justice was clicking into place. Then one afternoon he sent photos. Camila leaving a downtown pawn shop, carrying a large canvas bag. The receipt showed my mother's pearl necklace. I stared at the screen, empty inside. Harold's voice came soft over the phone. "You see, Lorraine, no need to rage. Let them expose themselves. You just stay quiet and patient." I nodded as tears fell quiet, not from pain but relief. For the first time in months, I knew I wasn't alone in this fight. That night, I sat in the study, the desk lamp washing over every paper, every photo, every proof. I gathered them into one file, labeled Case Number LP61, Camila Foster. When I closed it, I felt oddly calm. I understood that this battle didn't need shouting or revenge. It needed truth and time. Before bed, Harold texted, "Don't confront them. Let them believe you know nothing. The foolish think they're the smartest." I smirked, folded the phone, and blew out the light. In the dark, I whispered to Edward like I do every night, "Sweetheart, I'm doing this right. They won't take anything else from us." Outside, Savannah's wind picked up. I heard the first drops hit the roof, the beginning of the storm. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I knew that after the rain, justice wakes up. 2 weeks after meeting Harold, the air at home felt heavier. Camila started getting suspicious when she saw me quieter and less around. She noticed every detail, even me changing my phone password and locking my drawer. I knew I couldn't keep going alone. It was time to bring family back, the ones who thought I was being well cared for. I called Angela first, my voice trembling despite my calm. "Angela, I need to see you. It's not health. It's about our home." She paused for a few seconds, then said, "I'll fly in tonight." I texted Ryan, my oldest, "I need you in Savannah this weekend." "It's very important." Ryan replied simply, "Stay calm, I'll drive down." Camila noticed how long I'd been on the phone. She walked into the kitchen, pretending to pour water, and watched me in the mirror. "Who were you calling, Mom?" "I called the doctor," I answered calmly. "I need a checkup." She nodded with a thin smile. "Great. A doctor is exactly what you need now. I turned away so she wouldn't see the corner of my mouth lift. Yes, a doctor. But not the kind she thinks. 2 days later, Angela and Ryan showed up at the door. Camila had no idea. When she opened it, she froze for a second, then flashed a fake smile. "Oh my gosh, what a surprise! Why didn't you two call first? I didn't get to prepare anything." Angela hugged me tight, glanced around, her eyes sharp. "I just wanted to check on Mom," she called, and I got worried. "You came at the right time," I said softly. "Tonight, I have something to say." Camila stood beside us, trying to look relaxed. "Oh, if it's family stuff, I'll let you talk in private." "No need," I replied evenly. "This involves you, Camila. You should stay." She stiffened. For the first time, I saw worry flicker in those eyes, the ones I once mistook for gentle. That evening, the whole family sat around the table, the one Edward picked at a crafts shop on Abercorn Street. The pendant light threw a warm glow, but it couldn't soften the tension stretched tight as a wire. Nathan had just gotten home, still in his work shirt, looking tired. "What's going on, Mom?" "I'm in the middle of a project." "Camila said you called urgently." "That's right," I answered, "because I can't let this go any further." I looked at my children, Angela stern, Ryan quiet, Nathan uneasy. "Kids," I began, "I've been silent too long. I'm going to say everything now. I don't want anyone guessing anymore." I opened the file I'd set on the table. "These past months, my savings have been drained, and the house papers have been forged. The person behind it is Camila." A cold silence swallowed the room. Camila let out a high laugh. "What are you saying? How can you accuse me like that?" I didn't answer. I slid the papers toward her. "These are copies of the bank transactions. Every withdrawal went through your secondary account. And this is a power of attorney with my forged signature." Caroline, my sister, stood and pulled out her own folder. "This signature doesn't match the notarized exemplar on file." I checked. "And the notary stamp date doesn't match our system records." Angela turned to Camila, fury in her eyes. "You used my mother?" Camila gripped her water glass, voice shaky but still pretending to be composed. "This is a misunderstanding. I was just helping Mom organize her finances. Maybe the bank entered something wrong." Harold, seated at the head of the table, spoke gently. "We verified everything. You executed the transactions. And here is an audio recording of you telling a friend about selling the house." He set his phone down and hit play. The room filled with a cold, clinical voice. "Give it a little more time and she'll be in a nursing home. $600,000 will be ours." No one spoke. Only the slow tick of the wall clock. Nathan stared at the table. "Camila, say something." She forced a smile, choking up. "It was a joke. I was joking with a friend who would actually do that?" Ryan slammed his palm on the table. "Joking with my mother's assets?" I set my hand down, signaling everyone to stay calm. "There's more," I said. "She spread rumors that I was losing my memory in order to set up paperwork declaring me legally incompetent." "Rita, my friend, heard it straight from people at the market." Harold nodded. "We've asked Rita to testify." "She's willing to go to court." Camila went pale. She turned to Nathan, pleading, "Babe, don't believe them." I did everything for this family. But Nathan stayed quiet. His eyes sank, full of confusion and pain. I looked at my son, my heart softening. "Nathan, I don't want you to lose your wife. But you need to see the truth. This woman doesn't love you. She only loves the assets you stand to inherit." Harold added gently, "Miss Parker, we should take the next step. I've contacted Dr. Nguyen. She'll be present at the final meeting to confirm your mental fitness in front of everyone." "Final meeting?" Angela asked. "Yes," Harold said, eyes never leaving Camila. "This Friday night." 3 days later, I prepared in silence. Harold brought a tiny camera disguised in a potted plant. We need the full visuals. Once the truth is exposed, she won't be able to deny it. I nodded, hands still trembling. I never thought I'd have to do this to my own daughter-in-law. Harold rested a hand on my shoulder. Sometimes justice doesn't come from the courthouse, it comes from speaking up. Caroline organized the documents, Angela double-checked the house papers, and Ryan hid an audio recorder in the living room. No one said much. We all knew this moment would decide everything. That afternoon, I met Rita at the neighborhood coffee shop. She hugged me, voice unsteady. "I'm ready. I'll tell them I heard Camila say, someone Lorraine's age isn't in her right mind anymore." "I know, Rita," I said, squeezing her hand. "Thank you." Not everyone would step up. I can't stand watching you be treated like this. Edward once helped my husband out of a lawsuit. Now it's my turn to help you. Back home, I sat in the reading room and looked out at the garden. Dusk fell. Sunlight poured over the rose bushes Edward had planted. Everything was quiet, but inside me was a churning wave. Camila walked in with that familiar smile. "Are you okay, Mom? You've seemed tired lately." "I'm fine," I said evenly. "I'm just thinking about what to wear for Friday dinner." "A party?" "Yes," I answered, eyes on hers. "A family dinner, with a few special guests?" She smiled, thinking I meant it in the usual way. "Oh, great. I'll set the table." I only nodded, a thin thread of a smile. When she left, I glanced at the corner where the tiny camera blinked green from inside the orchid. I opened my journal and wrote the day's last line. Friday night, the confrontation. I will no longer be the one forced to be silent. And Nathan, you'll see the truth, even if it hurts. I closed the book and whispered to myself, enough. From now on, I won't fight alone. Outside, Savannah's sky turned soft purple. Just 2 days left, and I knew when Friday's candle is lit, it won't just light the room, it will relight the dignity they tried to bury. Friday night arrived, the house air thick like a storm about to break. I'd prepared all week for this moment, but when the porch light flicked on, I still trembled not from fear, but from sorrow. No mother wants to watch her family crack apart. But some truths, if not peeled back, will rot. Everything. Camila paced in the kitchen, voice pitched and fake busy. "Mom, just relax, okay? I'm making your favorite tonight. I want a nice atmosphere." I only nodded, holding a cup of tea I didn't drink. Right at 7 p.m., the doorbell rang. Harold walked in with Caroline and Dr. Nguyen. Angela, Ryan, and Nathan were already there. Camila faltered when she saw the doctor, then quickly regained her composure. "Hi, everyone," she said brightly. "Didn't expect such a crowd. What's the occasion?" Harold set his leather case on the table, removed his glasses, and spoke calmly. "Not exactly a celebration, Camila. This is a family meeting, and it's time to say everything." The room went still. I could hear the clock ticking. Camila glanced around, trying to smile. "What's so serious? I'm a little confused." Harold opened his case and took out a small USB. "We'll start with this recording Miss Parker gave me." He plugged it into the speaker. A voice clear, cold, unmistakable filled the room. "Just a little more time and she'll be in a nursing home. $600,000 will be ours. You get it, right?" Then Camila's soft laugh and the clink of glasses. Nathan flinched, eyes wide. "Camila, is that you?" She jumped up, snapping. "No, it's edited. Someone set me up." Harold said nothing, just laid down a color printout. "This is a copy of the receipt from the pawn shop on Habersham Street. Customer, Camila Foster. Item, pearl necklace from Miss Lorraine Parker's collection. Includes signature and surveillance stills." He fanned the photos across the table. Camila went white. I was just having it polished. They took the wrong photo." Angela's voice was low and sharp. "Polished? By signing temporary sale and taking cash? Camila choked, scanning for sympathy and finding none. Nathan stood motionless, hands clenched. Harold kept going, his voice like a gavel. These are the bank statements. In 3 months, a total of $28,000 withdrawn from Miss Parker's account, mostly luxury purchases, a Louis Vuitton bag, a Rolex, a Miami trip. All on a secondary card under your name. Camila backed up, her voice cracking. No, I only borrowed it. I was going to pay it back. I looked at her, my voice calm to the point of frightening. You say pay it back like it's a small favor. You're talking about years of my life saved penny by penny. Dr. Nguyen stepped forward, gentle but firm. I'm the physician who evaluated Miss Parker's cognition. I confirm she is fully competent, healthy, with no signs of memory loss or dementia. Those rumors have no basis. Camila turned to Nathan on the verge of tears. See, they're all ganging up on me. You have to believe me, Nathan. I love you. Caroline opened her case and pulled another stack of papers. Here's the bank authorization you forged with my sister's signature. The notary system shows the original signature doesn't match, and the seal was altered digitally. That's a criminal offense, Camila. I saw the steady resolve in my sister's eyes and felt a wave of gratitude. Harold gave a subtle nod. One of his staff, a former investigator, opened a laptop and played pawnshop footage. Camila walking in with a jewelry box, signing, taking cash. Crystal clear. Camila trembled, eyes gone wild. No, I just needed money for a bit. I'm tired of living in this old house. I couldn't stand it anymore. Her voice rang sharp and bitter. Nathan looked at his wife, pain and disbelief colliding. How could you, Camila? You don't understand, she shouted. You're always home late. You leave me alone. Your mother treats me like a maid. I just wanted something that was mine. I stood, my voice low and steady. You're right about one thing, Camila. I treated you like family. I trusted you, shared space, and let you touch what I treasured most. You chose betrayal, and now you will face the consequences. Harold closed the file. We have enough to file for elder financial abuse and forged notarization. But Miss Parker wants to give you a chance. A choice. I nodded, looking straight at Camila. Either you repay every dollar and leave this house tonight, or I let the court decide. Camila broke, falling to her knees and grabbing Nathan's pant leg. Say something, please. Don't let them do this to me. I did it for our future. Nathan stepped back, eyes red. No, Camila, you did it for yourself, for your greed. I've been blind too long. She sobbed, reaching for him, but he pulled away. For a moment, everything slowed the way her hands fell, the tears hitting the wood floor. The arrogance was gone. The gentle mask gone. Only a woman swallowed by her own lies remained. Harold set the agreement in front of her. Full restitution, immediate termination of residency here, no access to assets, and no contact with Miss Parker for 5 years. Sign, and we halt the filings. Silence. Then, the shaky scratch of a pen. Camila signed. When she put the pen down, I stood and walked to the door. A cool night breeze slipped through the curtain, cold and clean, like release. I opened it and said calmly, Go now, Camila. Walk out on your own before I change my mind. She looked up, eyes wet, but said nothing. She stumbled out, heels ticking on the floor like bells marking the end. Nathan watched, tears running. I moved to him and set my hand on his shoulder. Son, I'm not happy this happened. But understand, if we didn't stop it today, you would have lost everything. He nodded without a word, then hugged me, shaking like a child. I'm sorry, Mom, he choked. I was blind. I let you suffer. I squeezed his shoulder. All I need is for you to understand. I forgive you. Harold gathered the papers, relief in his eyes. Miss Parker, he said, This is almost over. Remember, sometimes justice doesn't need to win in court. It wins when people have to bow their heads. I looked around the house, the old photos, the doorways that had seen laughter and tears. Tonight, peace returned here. I closed the door, the garden's lavender scent drifting in. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this. Justice isn't revenge. Justice is when the truth isn't buried anymore. And on that Friday night, in a small Savannah home, the truth broke open along with the light of a freedom I thought I'd lost for good. The next morning, Savannah sunlight slid through the curtains, strangely clear. The house was quiet in a new way, no stiletto clicks on the floor, no heavy perfume, no forced laughter. Just fresh coffee and sparrows in the yard. I stood on the porch and breathed deep. For the first time in months, I felt like I was breathing with my own lungs, not with fear. Harold arrived early with a locksmith. Change it all, Lorraine, not just the lock-safe codes, bank logins, mailbox. I nodded, watching them remove the old locks and install new ones. The clicks sounded like freedom. Every snap felt like releasing something that had been trapped. When they finished, Harold set a file on the table. Asset recovery letters went out this morning. I included proof of the illegal pawn. The shop is obligated to return whatever is left. Thank you, Harold. My voice caught. Without you, I don't know what I would have done. He smiled. I'm only doing what Edward wanted. He told me, if Lorraine ever gets in trouble, don't let her stand alone. I'm just keeping my promise. That afternoon, a delivery came carefully packed, signed under my name. On the box, a handwritten note, returning property per legal request. Inside were small bundles wrapped in old newspaper, each taped neatly. In the first bundle, I found my mother's pearl strand, the one I thought was gone forever. Light from the window danced along each pearl, like moonlight from my childhood. I touched them, cool against my fingertips, and the chill moved straight to my heart. I broke down, not for the money it was worth, but for what it meant. My mother gave me those pearls on my wedding day. She said, "You don't wear them to look pretty, you wear them to remember you have worth." I held them to my chest, tears soaking my hand. Nathan stepped into the room, stood quietly, then said softly, "Mom, can I stay here for a while? I want to fix things, not just the house what I let break." I looked up at my son's red eyes. In them were remorse, love, and the return of faith. "You don't have to fix everything," I said gently. "Just be here, that's enough." The next day, Nathan moved his things from a small rental near downtown back home. He swept the floors himself, repainted the railing, and mowed the lawn. In the heavy June heat, I saw Edward in every motion my son made, and for the first time, the house no longer felt weighed down by memories, it felt alive again. A week later, I returned to the Savannah Book Club after nearly half a year away. When I walked in, the room froze for a few seconds. Rita, my closest friend, was the first to stand. "Oh my God, Lorraine!" she cried, then came over and hugged me tight. "I was afraid you'd never come back." I laughed through tears. "I thought so too, Rita, but I made it." She looked at me for a long moment and held my hand. "You're stronger than you think." That night, we reread To Kill a Mockingbird, just like my first day at the club. When Rita read the part where Atticus says, "Courage is not a man with a gun in his hand. It's knowing you're licked before you begin, but you begin anyway and see it through no matter what," my heart trembled. I understood the meaning of courage more clearly than ever. A few days later, I saw Dr. Nguyen again. She greeted me with a warm smile. "You look much better. Now we need to care for the emotional side. Trauma after abuse can linger." She taught me to rewrite painful memories as letters never sent, not to forget, but to finish. I wrote a long letter to Camila but didn't send it. I placed it in a desk drawer, and as I folded it, I felt like I'd closed a chapter. I also started rebuilding my financial plan. Sitting with Harold and Caroline, I opened my notebook and listed every item: retirement income, insurance, savings, small investments. I moved everything into my name alone, added new security layers, and decided to use cash for day-to-day spending. "You learn fast," Harold said. "Edward would be proud." I smiled. "I have to. One fall is enough to remember for a lifetime." That afternoon, Angela called. "Mom, I just sent over some pumpkin bread you like. Ryan and I will be home this weekend. Let's do a family dinner." I smiled and looked around the kitchen. After all these months, it was clean, bright, and most of all warm. I set the tablecloth myself, put a few lavender sprigs in a glass jar, and turned on the little radio. Low, warm jazz filled the room. On Saturday afternoon, Angela and Ryan really came. They brought flowers, food, and laughter. Nathan grilled in the yard, I tossed a salad, and Rita stopped by too. When we all sat at the table, voices overlapping and silverware clinking, I realized I had forgotten the sound of simple happiness, the sound of a real family. After dinner, Angela took me upstairs, sat beside me, and spoke softly. "Mom, I know what you went through wasn't easy, but you did it. I'm truly proud of you." I held my daughter's hand and looked out the window where sunset turned the magnolia leaves gold. "I didn't beat anyone, Angela. I just beat my own fear." That night, when the house went quiet, I sat at my desk and opened the familiar brown leather journal. I wrote slowly, one word at a time. June 20th. Everything is coming back to life. I've reclaimed every brick of this house, every breath of my life. Camila is gone, but the fear she planted has been replaced by peace. Nathan stayed. Angela and Ryan returned. The kitchen has laughter, the garden has flowers, and in the mirror, I see myself again. I set down the pen, blew gently to dry the ink, and closed the journal. Night air slipped through the window frame carrying the scent of damp earth and lavender, the scent of freedom. I smiled and spoke softly into the quiet. "Edward, do you see it? Everything is calm now." And in that moment, I knew not only had this house been saved, but my soul had been returned. I had truly gotten myself back. 3 weeks after the night Camila left, I thought it was over. But then Harold called, his voice low with a hint of hesitation. "Lorraine, we just received a letter from Camila's attorney. She wants to negotiate." I set my teacup down, frowning. "Negotiate what? Everything's clear. She says she can't repay the full amount in cash within the agreed time. Instead, she proposes transferring her old River Street apartment, worth an equivalent amount." I let out a laugh of disbelief. An apartment on River Street? That noisy strip by the river? The only asset she has left, and now she wants to redeem herself with it? "Real value is about $48,000, Harold said. "Legally, if you accept, we can close this cleanly and quickly. No dragging on, no complications." I went quiet. A mix of satisfaction and conflict rose inside me. Part of me wanted her to struggle and pay it back little by little to remember it for life, but another part was tired. I'd won, but the cost of winning was the wear on my heart. I sighed. "What if I don't accept?" "Then we continue the lawsuit," Harold said slowly. "But, Lorraine, holding on to resentment will weaken you. Sometimes letting go isn't forgiving them, it's freeing yourself." I sat for a long time after he hung up. Sunlight streamed through the blinds onto the pearl strand resting in its wooden box. I touched it lightly, feeling the cool of time. "Holding on to resentment will weaken you," Harold's words echoed. Maybe he was right. I didn't want Camila living in my head anymore. The next day, I went to Harold's office in downtown Savannah. He spread the file out and explained carefully. "The River Street apartment is on the 3rd floor, facing the river. Camila agrees to transfer full ownership in exchange for you dropping further actions." I read each line, then looked up. I agree, but I have one condition. What is it? I want her to write a confession. By hand. Clearly stating what she did, not for the court, for me. Harold smiled and nodded. Fair. And reasonable. I'll arrange it. 3 days later, we met at the law office. Camila arrived looking different, thinner, pale, her eyes no longer shining. She handed Harold a thick envelope with trembling hands. I wrote it. I just want to end this. Harold opened the letter and passed it to me. Her handwriting tilted and soft, but each sentence was clear. I, Camila Foster, admit to exploiting and taking the property of my mother-in-law, Mrs. Lorraine Parker. I forged a signature, pawned jewelry, and spread false rumors. I signed this with the hope of making amends and ending all legal disputes. When I finished reading, I looked up. Camila's eyes held nothing but fatigue. I'll sign the transfer today, she said quietly. I just want to get far away from this city. I nodded. Go. Savannah has no place for people like you anymore. Caroline was there to notarize. She recorded the entire signing on a small camera. When the last signature was down, I felt a long old cord cleanly severed. A week later, I went with Harold to see the River Street apartment. It was an old red brick building from the 1920s. A spiral staircase led to the 3rd floor with a faint musty smell, but the windows opened toward the Savannah River, where sunset spread gold across the water. The apartment was about 800 square feet, white walls, wood floors peeling in a few spots, but when the afternoon light slanted in, everything seemed strangely alive. I walked a loop, touched the windowsill, and watched small boats drift by. A whistle sounded somewhere, mixing with the breeze and the salt in the air. There was a simple peace here, the kind my big house didn't always have. Harold asked. Want to sell it? I can find a buyer fast. I shook my head. Not yet. I want to think. After he left, I stayed a bit longer. A small mirror still hung on the wall, reflecting my face, no anger now, just quiet. I thought of Camila. Even though she'd gone, for a brief moment, I didn't feel hatred anymore. What I'd called a debt was now just a lesson. Then I thought of Nathan, my son, still finding himself after everything. He'd spent the week helping me fix the house, but I knew he was still torn inside. He lost a wife, lost trust, and was stuck at the starting line. I looked around the apartment. Old, small, but bright, in a lively neighborhood near the park and the riverfront. A place just right for someone to begin again. That night, when Nathan came home from work, I said, "Nathan, I have something to show you." He glanced up with a tired smile. "What is it, Mom?" I handed him the key. "A small apartment on River Street. The deed is in my name now. I'm giving it to you." His eyes went wide. "Mom, I can't take that. You just got it back." "That's exactly why I'm giving it to you," I said slowly. Sometimes the best way to erase a debt is to turn it into an opportunity for someone else. That apartment used to symbolize greed. I want it to symbolize a new start. Nathan went still, eyes red. I don't know what to say except, "Thank you, Mom." I touched his shoulder and smiled gently. "Don't thank me. Live well. And learn what it took me a lifetime to learn. Money can be regained, but trust has to be rebuilt." He nodded and hugged me tight. That night, I wrote in my journal under the warm lamplight, July 2nd. I accepted a strange offer, a small apartment in place of a big debt. More than that, I reclaimed peace. Nathan is beginning again. So am I. Some battles don't need a winner, only someone who knows when to stop. I closed the journal and looked out the window where the river breeze carried salt and the soft slap of water against the shore. Life, it turns out, is like that water, sometimes surging, sometimes still, but always flowing toward peace. A week after receiving the River Street apartment, I decided to fix it up. Not because it was falling apart, but because I wanted to warm a place once tied to deceit and turn it into the start of healing. Nathan arrived first. He wore an old t-shirt, lugged paint boxes, and smiled sheepishly. "I've never painted a place before, but just tell me what to do." I laughed. Then, today, we both learn. Angela and Ryan drove down from Atlanta. Caroline stopped by with a box of older but solid kitchenware. Rita came with a small pine bookshelf she said she'd made by hand, not for sale. The apartment buzzed. Angela's little speaker played Edward's favorite old jazz. Windows wide open, river wind carried salt and sun inside. Nathan rolled paint over peeling patches. His voice was low and hoarse from dust. "Mom, I still feel awful." I let it go too far. I looked at him and said softly, "You know, rebuilding a wall is easier than rebuilding trust. But we'll try." He looked up, eyes damp, and nodded. In that look was true remorse, what I'd hoped for and finally saw. In the kitchen, Caroline wiped shelves and told old stories. "Remember when you saved every penny for that wood cabinet in your first house? We were poor but happy." I smiled. "Because back then we had nothing to lose, so we weren't afraid," Rita called from the living room. "Then we have to relearn that now. The older we get, the lighter we should live." Ryan sat by the window, brewing coffee with a small machine he'd brought. "I think coffee smells like beginnings," he said, "like waking up to another day." Angela arranged flowers and turned on "What a Wonderful World" when Louis Armstrong's warm voice filled the room. It felt like the apartment was breathing with us. All day, everyone stayed busy without feeling tired. Each of us had a reason to be there, not just to paint, wipe, and install lights, but to touch the broken thread of family again. At lunch, we sat on the floor with cold pizza and canned soda. I looked at the faces around me, people who had once drifted apart, now shoulder to shoulder, sweaty and smiling bright. I realized some homes only need a fresh coat of paint, but some households must be repainted with forgiveness. 3 weeks flew by like a breath. The apartment glowed, smelling of new paint. Walls clean and white, the wood floor polished, sheer curtains on the windows. Rita placed the bookshelf in the corner, and Angela stacked a few of my novels on it. Caroline organized the kitchen. When we switched on the lights for the first time, warm gold washed the walls and lit every face bright, cozy, and calm. I held the key and turned to Nathan. "This place is yours now, like I promised." He stood still, looking around. "Mom, I'm not ready. I want to stay with you a bit longer. We still have things to fix at home." In his voice I heard not just gratitude, but the need to be close, to make amends, to start over. I smiled and nodded. "Okay, our home always has a place for you." That evening, after everyone left, I returned alone to the apartment. Sunset slid through the window, glowing on fresh paint. I touched the wall and heard my heartbeat steady, as if I'd completed something bigger than a renovation I'd repaired myself. I got home after dark. The house felt familiar but no longer cold. Nathan was in the kitchen making tea. "Honey or lemon?" he called. "Honey," I said, then went into the study. I opened the safe, the same one that had left me numb that morning months ago. It had a new code now. When the door swung open, the light reflected on black velvet where the old jewelry lay. I placed each piece back exactly where it belonged. The wedding band, my mother's pearls, the earrings Edward gave me for our 10th anniversary. My hands trembled as I latched the box. I wasn't angry anymore. I just felt grateful that I was still here, able to put back what had been taken, not only things but faith in justice, in myself and in family. I sat down and looked out the window. Fireflies lit the garden. Nathan came in and set a cup of tea in front of me. "I think Dad would be proud of you." I smiled and answered softly, "No, your dad would be proud of all of us." Because we didn't let the bad define us. After he went to bed, I stayed a while longer, watching the clock strike 11 p.m. I picked up my pen and opened the journal fresh page, slow ink. July 26th. The River Street apartment is finished. Those white walls carry the breath of a new beginning. I handed Nathan the key, but he said he wants to stay with me a bit longer, and I understand. We're both healing. I've learned that to rebuild a house, you need paint, wood, and light. To rebuild a heart, you need time, love, and trust. I closed the journal, stood, and went to bed. On the nightstand, our wedding photo was still there, Edward smiling with those kind eyes, as if telling me everything was all right. I turned off the light and lay down, breathing the breeze outside, and the faint scent of lavender. For the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. No worry, no anger, no fear. Only one feeling remained: calm. And that night I slept well, truly well, like someone who finally returned from a long storm and set foot on her own ground. One early autumn morning, with fog still hanging over the porch, I opened the mailbox and found a cream envelope with no sender, just to Mrs. Lorraine Parker. The handwriting was soft and slanted, very familiar. I sat on the wooden chair, hands trembling a little as I opened it. Inside was a 2-page handwritten letter. Dear Mom, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need to say this so I can keep living. After leaving Savannah, I came to Jacksonville and got a job at a small coffee shop. The owner knew about my financial record but still hired me, saying, everyone needs a chance to be better. I started therapy. The doctor says I've been haunted by a feeling of never being enough, so I tried to prove myself with things. I see now that in that race I lost myself and the people who once opened their arms to me. Every morning when I make coffee, I remember your kitchen, filled with the smell of waffles and your gentle voice. I just want you to know I'm truly sorry. Not for the law, not to bargain, but for my conscience. I stopped at that line, tears falling onto the paper and blurring the ink. I understand if you never want to hear my name again. But I hope, wherever you are, you're at peace. Thank you for not taking me to the end in court. Because of that, I have a chance to learn how to be a person again. Camila. I sat for a long time, listening to the wind move through the magnolias out front. What I felt wasn't anger, but a soft emptiness, as if an old hatred had finally dissolved into air. I folded the letter, set it on the table, and brewed myself tea. The scent of mint filled the room, blending with the morning sun through the blinds. For the first time, thinking of Camila didn't stab my chest. I only felt sorry for someone who lost her way and relieved that, at least, she'd found a path out. That afternoon, Harold stopped by. Lorraine, he said, I came to let you know, the entire case file has been officially closed. There are no legal procedures pending. I smiled and poured him tea. So it's truly over. Yes, he nodded, eyes gentle. Justice has many forms. Sometimes it isn't in a verdict, but in someone choosing to look at themselves. I smiled, my voice light as air. And sometimes, it's in someone choosing to let go. After he left, I went to the market early. The little riverside market always feels familiar. I bought a bunch of yellow tulips, a few apples, and a bag of cinnamon. Back home, I turned on the stove, mixed the batter, and poured it into the waffle iron. In a moment, the smell of cinnamon filled the kitchen. The house smelled like happiness again, a scent I thought I'd lost forever. Nathan walked in, paint still in his hair from a side job. Mom, the house smells amazing. What are you baking? Waffles, your dad's old recipe, he laughed. Then I'm eating double. Oh, Mom, I'm seeing someone. Her name is Elena Brooks, an elementary school teacher at Riverside. I paused and looked at him. A teacher? Your eyes light up just talking about her. He smiled, a little shy. She's gentle, and she makes me feel like I'm enough. After everything, I thought no one could accept me anymore. I touched his hand lightly. Someone sincere won't make you afraid of yourself, Nathan. If you can be yourself around her, she's worth keeping." He went quiet, then hugged me. That warmth made me realize, love, when rebuilt on honesty, can bring anything back to life. Angela and Ryan still visit often. Every weekend, my house fills with laughter and the little footsteps of my 2 grandkids running down the hall, clutching waffles. Still warm. "Mom," Angela said, "the kids want to sleep over at Grandma's." I laughed. "As long as they don't eat all my waffles." Caroline calls a lot too, asking about good books and sending photos of her new rose garden. Rita still drops by every morning with a hot coffee and a few stories from book club. Life slowed down, but it was warm. No drama, no crises, just the small things that let you know you're still living. One afternoon, while tidying the kitchen cabinet, I found an old sticky note scribbled during the early days of it all. On it was my messy handwriting. "Don't sign if you don't understand. Don't trust if you don't feel safe." I looked at that line for a long time, then stuck it back inside the cabinet door so every time I open it, I remind myself. Not just in legal matters, but in every relationship in life. That evening, Nathan came home late. I sat by the window, watching the dock lights reflect on the river. The Savannah autumn sky glittered like gold leaf. In that moment, I felt more clearly than ever that I'd walked out of the storm. No fear could swallow me anymore. I stood, went to the living room, and looked up at my wedding photo with Edward on the wall. His eyes in the picture were the same as ever, kind, trusting, and calm. I set my hand on the frame and whispered, "I protected what we built, Edward. The house, our children, and the value of honesty." Outside, the wind moved through the trees, and the scent of cinnamon and coffee lingered in the air. I sat at the table, opened my journal, and wrote the last line for the October page. Today, I received a letter from the person who once took everything from me, but instead of hate, I felt warm inside. Maybe forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's when you no longer tremble at the memory. I have lived, I have lost, I have reclaimed, and now I choose peace. I closed the journal, turned off the light, and let moonlight slip through the grant blinds onto Edward's frame. That night, I slept deeply, in the little house I kept by using my mind, my courage, and love, the one thing no one can take. A year has passed since that storm moved through my life. Today, I am 62. Savannah morning was bright with sun. Light poured through the living room window and lit up the family photos on the wall. Edward still smiling gently next to pictures of my kids, grandkids, and me, with a smile I never thought would be bright again. On the table sat a big chocolate cake covered in white frosting and fresh strawberries. The smell of cocoa mixed with coffee, waffles, and laughter. The house was alive, truly alive. Angela hung balloons, Ryan took photos, and Caroline arranged a few extra bouquets. Rita sat chuckling in the armchair and said to me, "Lorraine, I told you, good people don't lose. They just take the long way around." I smiled. Yes, and on that long road, we learn who's genuine and who only walks with us when the lights are on. A knock sounded. Nathan came in with a bright bouquet of sunflowers. Beside him was Elena Brooks, the teacher he'd told me about. She wore a pale blue dress, her hair loosely tied back, eyes kind and polite. "Hello, Mrs. Parker." She smiled. Nathan said, "Today is your birthday, so we brought flowers." I took the bouquet and touched her hand, feeling the sincerity in her eyes. "Thank you, dear. The only gift I need is you making Nathan smile." Nathan looked at me and smiled softly. "Mom, I remember what you said, the sincere person won't make you afraid of yourself. I think I've found someone like that." I touched my son's shoulder and spoke quietly. "I know. He's been living at the River Street apartment for a few months now, but still comes to have dinner with me 3 times a week. That apartment, once marked by deceit, has become a place of renewal. Nathan fixed the balcony, planted lavender, and strung warm lights. He says that every evening, when the lights reflect on the river, he thinks of the months I stood strong, and because of that, he knows how to live better. Midway through the party, Harold arrived holding an envelope. "Someone sent this to you," he said, "from Jacksonville." I opened it. It was a note from a law office inside, just a small sheet with a few lines. "Camilla Foster has left the state. She sends thanks for the chance to start over." I read slowly, then smiled. No bitterness, only peace. "Everyone pays for their mistakes," I said, "but if they learn something from it, the price wasn't wasted." The room went quiet for a few seconds. Rita wiped her eyes and said softly, "You're the strongest woman I know." I smiled, but inside I only felt light. Strength, it turns out, doesn't come from shouting or revenge. It comes from standing steady without hatred. A month later at book club, I told my story. Not for pity, but to remind other women that they have the right to protect themselves. When I reached the part about finding the empty safe in the line, "You're too old to need that stuff," the room fell silent. Many nodded, tears rolling. A woman in the back row said, "Mrs. Lorraine, my daughter took all my savings once, but hearing you, I feel like I can get up again." I walked over and held her hand. We can lose gold, lose a house, even lose our trust, but if we can still get up, we haven't lost our worth. The whole room clapped. I knew that, in that moment, I wasn't just telling a story, I was passing on a belief. In the afternoon, after everyone left, I stepped onto the porch and opened wide the freshly painted wooden door. Savannah sunlight poured down, golden on my hair, on my wrinkled hands, and on the steps where Edward used to drink his morning coffee. I sat down and took a deep breath. No scent of worry, no scent of fear, just sun, wood, and a hint of slightly burnt waffles Nathan had tried in the kitchen. I closed my eyes, listening to kids laughing in the yard, distant traffic, and my heartbeat steady and calm. A year ago, I thought my life was over. But sometimes, to begin again, you only need to let one door close and open another. I looked up at the bright sky. A beam of light slipped through the doorway and fell straight on Edward's photo on the wall. I smiled and said softly, "My love, I protected what we built. Not just the house, but our self-respect, our trust, and children who know how to love the right way." If my story makes you think of someone, a mother, a father, or a relative who's been hurt in their own home, please share it. Tell me where you're listening from, because every comment is like an embrace, bringing us closer through stories of family, dignity, and resilience. If you believe no one is ever too old to be respected and loved, hit like, subscribe, and help me keep this flame burning for everyone who was ever seen as weak but stayed strong enough to rise. Thank you for staying to the end. Your presence turns stories like mine from pain into a reminder. We can start over at any age.